3 areas of your life that you should have boundaries in. There is an endless amount of things in your life where you could set boundaries. It could be as simple as lending people things or as large as your physical space. No matter what area of your life you want to set boundaries in, they are always very important. If you feel confident enough to set boundaries and others do not respect it, then it is time to take a step back and look at who you are letting in your life. Boundaries are good for all aspects of life. 1. Physical boundaries. Generally, this is seen as the most important and most apparent area of life for boundaries to be set. Whether it be with coworkers, friends, family, or a new partner, clarifying what is okay and what is not okay for physical touching is a must-do. This is often talked about in terms of toddlers. Some parents make their toddlers hug all of their relatives, but that is teaching children that it is okay to hug someone even if they don't want to. Now, more parents are letting the children choose, and if they don't want to hug their aunt or grandma, then that's okay. It's their choice. This is a very basic way of teaching what boundaries are and how they are okay. However, if you are an adult, boundaries can go much further and be much more difficult to set. You should never feel like you have to let someone touch you, or you have to do this or that with someone. You are in charge of your body, and you should control who can touch you. 2. Emotional boundaries. With an ever-growing look into the mental health of people, emotions and someone's emotional state has become so important. Even if you have no known mental illnesses, making sure that you have emotional boundaries can help you greatly in the long run. One way to set emotional boundaries is by deciding how much you will share about your private life. If you just meet someone, then only share as far as who you are on social media. If you're starting to seriously date someone, then maybe let them in a little more. Things like this will make sure your emotions do not get damaged by others who know about your life. Remember, though, you are only responsible for your own emotions. If someone else reacts badly to you not sharing a lot, then that is their problem. Walk away from the situation and keep your emotions healthy. 3. Time boundaries. This is a big one when trying to change aspects of your life or in your life. Time boundaries mean that you figure out what and where you want to spend your time. You don't go with the flow all the time, and you don't let others take up far too much time or more time than you want to give them. If you have friends that generally lead you to make bad decisions, yet you still want them in your life, then maybe you only hang out with them for a half hour at most. Or maybe you have a toxic parent that you can't go no contact with, so you only see them on holidays and talk to them on the phone once a month. There are plenty of ways to create time boundaries. Creating these types of boundaries could free up a lot of time to do something that inspires you or excites you. Maybe you now have time to learn yoga or do that painting class or go on more dates. If you're able to benefit in any way, then it was a good boundary to set. 3 common obstacles in the way of implementing good boundaries. Everyone's obstacles for setting healthy boundaries may be different, but there are some very common ones out there. Generally, these obstacles have to do with people believing they don't deserve to set boundaries or not knowing how to properly set them. With some research and reading, all of these common obstacles can be overcome. 1. Fear of being abandoned. As difficult as it is to admit, many people have a fear of being abandoned by all their close relatives and friends. The mere thought of telling them something they may not like could convince you that they are going to leave you right away. However, if it is so easy to see them abandoning you, then should they really be in your life? For some people, this fear of abandonment is constant, not just when they are setting boundaries. Sometimes it is internal anxiety or something else, but often this feeling comes about when others do things to make you feel like they don't care. These are the people that setting boundaries with may benefit you most. Setting boundaries with them could make sure that they don't make you feel lesser than, and don't give you that constant anxiety. If they truly care about you and want to be in your life, then they will not abandon you. If they do abandon you, then it is better for your well-being that they are out of your life. 2. Non-deserving. Many people underestimate themselves and believe they do not deserve the best in life. With boundaries, people may believe that their boundaries aren't that important or aren't huge changes, so they don't deserve to set them. Or the reason could be even more deep-seated and traumatic. No matter what your reason for feeling non-deserving of boundaries, you are wrong. Everyone on this planet is here for a reason and deserves to set boundaries so that others do not make you uncomfortable or hurt your emotions or mental stability, including you. There is no such thing as deserving a sense of self and boundaries. It is a given right. Looking deeper into yourself could give you a better idea of why you believe you don't deserve this. Then from there, you may be able to work through it and get rid of these obstacles. 3. Fear of an argument. Most people don't inherently know how to start a conversation about their boundaries. Not knowing how to do this or not being able to plan it out can lead to believing that there will be anger on the other side of the conversation and maybe even an argument. These can make people never want to risk bringing up the conversation. Once again, if you think these people will start an argument about healthy boundaries you are trying to set, then it's time to look at the real traits of these people. Those who you have healthy relationships with would not start an argument over a healthy boundary setting. They would have your best interest at hand. Everyone has different fears when starting the journey into setting healthy boundaries within their relationships. A great way to work through any fear is to look inwardly. First, figure out what exactly your fears and perceived obstacles are. Writing them down can sometimes help sort out your thoughts. Then, figure out why these are fears in your mind. Getting to the root of the issue is a large step in overcoming the issue. While you may find out more about yourself than you may like, it will help you in the long run. From there, you are able to dismantle these irrational obstacles or fears. Then, you are well on your way to setting healthy boundaries. 4 ways to keep your boundaries. Setting boundaries is one struggle, but keeping them in place is another one. If you choose to set boundaries and then fail to keep them in place, then those around you may not take your boundaries seriously next time. For others to take them seriously, you must too. However, with day-to-day life, it may seem difficult to keep these boundaries in place. Here are some easier ways to keep your boundaries even with a hectic life. 1. Act assertive. You may not always realize when one of your boundaries is being broken. That is bound to happen. No one can remember everything at all times, and that's okay. However, when you do realize one of your boundaries is being broken, make sure to address it assertively. By saying something simple and direct, you can put your boundaries back in place. If you are at a bar and someone is hitting on you, then you can simply say, "I'm not interested. I would appreciate it if you left me alone." This is a direct and simple line that does not make you seem like a bad person, just assertive. If they continue to do something after you have been assertive and direct, then it is best to leave the situation. If it is a friend that is doing something even after you asserted your boundary, then it is best to not talk to them for a little while. Maybe later you can both come back with clear minds and discuss it. 2. Know your boundaries. Setting boundaries is good, but if you set too many, you may not always remember what they are. If you fail to remember them fully, then there is no way to keep them in place. This could confuse those around you if you fail to keep in place the boundaries that you discussed with them. Writing down your boundaries is a great way to keep track. It could be on a little notepad you keep in your car or in your notes app in your phone. Either way, having them written somewhere will help you keep everything clear in your mind. This way, you're able to clearly state these boundaries as many times as needed to those they apply to. 3. Support system. Whether you're trying to set boundaries while dating, with a partner, with friends or family, having someone on your side who knows your boundaries is a good thing. If your best friend helped you to get to a place where you could set boundaries, then maybe they will help you enforce them. Doing this journey alone can be scary, but having someone who you trust on your side can make things much better. They will be able to help you remember boundaries as well as stick to them if you start to stray. 4. Cut people out. Setting boundaries come into play when there are things people do that you do not want in your life. Messing up sometimes may be inevitable for them. However, if you reassert your boundary and continue to mess up, then it may be time to just move on. Leaving behind friends or family that you've always known seems really hard, and it most likely will be. However, once you are free from things that you didn't want in your life, then you are able to truly live. It will be so much better off for you in the long run if you let these people go instead of trying to fix them. Keeping boundaries is almost more important than setting them in the first place. It is also a lot harder because life gets hectic and things change. Hopefully, these 4 tips help you to keep your boundaries set in stone. 5 reasons you should set boundaries. Putting boundaries in place in your personal relationships is a long process. It helps determine what behavior you accept from others and vice versa. These boundaries come in emotional form, verbal form, and physical form, whichever you feel the need to set. Boundaries are something you may often hear about but might not often set in place. They are great to implement in really any relationship. It gives you relationships on your terms, so nothing ever goes over your personal limits. 1. Gives self-confidence. Being able to set boundaries in your relationships and having others respect them will give you personal respect and often the respect of others. This is a type of respect that helps to grow your self-confidence, which will help you blossom into who you are meant to be. By doing this once, you get the empowering sense of self-feeling that setting boundaries gives an individual. Once you understand that feeling and experience it, then you will want to continue doing it. This gives you your life on your terms, which should happen for each and every one of us. 2. Feeling of safety. Although you might already feel safe in all of your personal relationships, setting boundaries takes it to a different level. If you are able to have this conversation in a respectful manner with another person, then that gives you a look into their inner person. Knowing who they really are can give you a great sense of safety in itself. However, if you give them these boundaries and they respect them and work with you, then you will feel even safer with or around them. They are showing themselves as an understanding and respectful person overall, which is who you truly want in your life. 3. Get rid of toxic people. By attempting to set boundaries with people, you are able to see who truly has your best interest at heart. If there are those that you talk to that give you a hard time about setting boundaries or refuse to apply themselves to them, then it is time to get those people out of your life. This is a great way to filter out toxic people. Those who truly care about you and want you as a part of their life will work with you and respect whatever boundaries you put forward. Toxic people will rebel against them and gaslight you for having them in the first place. 4. Making healthier decisions. There are those toxic things that everyone does, such as have too much to drink or have a smoke, etc. Sometimes these bad decisions are linked to bad people, sometimes not. Either way, by creating boundaries, you are distancing yourself from the situations in which you would make these bad decisions. Maybe through this, you will even be able to make better decisions on top of not making these. Trade that alcohol for some electrolytes or that smoke for a salad. The possibilities are endless when you start to set boundaries. 5. Improvement in mental health. Setting boundaries can do wonders for your mental health. Your emotional boundaries can set standards for what you won't tolerate in terms of manipulating or gaslighting. Physical boundaries can help you set standards so that you do not get triggered by a movement or something along those lines. These will all bring feelings of empowerment, which gives you a renewed sense of self. Once you feel empowered and safe, it is much easier to work towards a healthier mental state. Setting boundaries is a great idea for everyone in every area of life. Set physical and emotional boundaries with friends, families, significant others, and coworkers. You will feel much more in charge of your life and have the ability to live it to the fullest extent. 5 signs your partner is not respecting your boundaries. This may seem like an odd thing to go over, obviously. If the partner is not respecting your boundaries, then they are not respecting your boundaries. However, there are many more subtle ways that partners can begin to not respect your boundaries. Knowing the early warning signs can help limit the boundaries they overstep and help you get a handle on the situation. 1. They seem to be testing them. If your partner keeps going close to your boundaries, whatever they may be, but not overstepping them, it would seem like they are testing you. If it happens once or twice, it probably wasn't on purpose. If it keeps happening time after time, then it may signal that your partner is no longer respecting your boundaries. 2. Guilt tripping. If your partner starts or continues based on the situation, guilt tripping you about your set of boundaries, then they do not respect them. Respecting you as a person and your boundaries would mean not questioning them, as long as they are healthy boundaries. Guilt tripping can be subtle. Your partner can say something that isn't direct towards your boundary, or it can be outright. Your partner could say how dumb they believe your boundary is, or how all other couples do that in public, so your boundary doesn't make any sense. 3. Feeling unsafe talking about boundaries. In a healthy and respectful relationship, each person in the relationship should feel safe talking about their thoughts, feelings, and boundaries. A relationship is essentially supposed to be a safe place for an individual. That means if you feel like an argument or something more is going to break out over another conversation about boundaries, then your partner is blatantly disrespecting your boundaries. Someone who respects your boundaries would make you feel like you could always go to them about those said boundaries. 4. Not listening to you. If you have the initial boundary setting conversation and they seem to not be taking it seriously, then that is a very early sign that they are not going to respect your boundaries. If you are being direct and letting them know this conversation and these boundaries are important to you, then they should be listening attentively and respectfully. Even if they listen during the initial conversation, there is always the possibility of them not listening later on. Maybe they do something that hits one of your boundaries, and you politely remind them about it. If they are not listening, then they clearly do not respect this boundary or you. 5. They don't try to understand. Everyone has different reasons for setting boundaries. Some are much harder to understand than others. Those in a respectful relationship will get their partners trying to understand where they are coming from and how to help them. However, those with partners that already do not have respect will have partners that do not try and see things from their point of view. The want to understand comes of a place of deep compassion, which is something everyone wants in a relationship, but something not everyone has. If your partner is not trying to understand where your boundaries are coming from, then they don't truly want to help you uphold these boundaries. If you get a partner that is showing signs of not respecting your boundaries, then it is best to get ahead. Talk to them directly and see if it is something that they forget or something that you two can work out together. If this does not work, it may be time to analyze your relationship and think about leaving. You deserve to be with someone who respects you. Does setting boundaries make me a selfish person? The short answer to if setting boundaries makes you a selfish person is no. The longer answer incorporates many aspects of your life and others as well. Let's get into why setting boundaries makes you a more respectable person rather than a selfish person. For you, if you are the one setting boundaries, it can feel difficult. It may feel like you're making unfair rules and are changing who you are. But in reality, you have always been that person. You are finally stepping up for yourself. By letting emotional and physical boundaries with others in your life, you are creating the life you really want to live. Many people grow up not being allowed to set boundaries or being too shy to set them. This can make for a lot of confusing situations and maybe even unsafe situations for the individual. After enough of being stepped on or having things not go the way they want them to, then the individual finally decides to create these boundaries. By creating these boundaries, you are saving not only your mental health, but also your physical health. Mentally, you could have those who are manipulative or gaslighting you. By setting boundaries with them, you could limit their part in your life. Or they may disagree with your boundaries and leave, which would eliminate this from your life. Physically, there may be things that trigger you into drinking or smoking or doing something else that is bad for your body. Or there may be those who influence you to do that more so than normal. Setting boundaries with yourself and with others on these issues could save you from many different health problems. If you are able to set boundaries with people, you will be able to see who you really want in your life. If they respect you setting boundaries and adhere to them, then those are the people to surround yourself with. If they make you feel bad for setting boundaries or continue to disrespect them, then it may be time to get rid of those toxic people. No matter how many or few boundaries you set, you will feel empowered and gain a large sense of self. This could help you take life by the horns and live it the way you truly want to. There is nothing selfish about wanting to pursue a happy and healthy life. For them. Although you may believe setting boundaries will only benefit you, it will actually help those around you as well. There are two ways to go with this. On one side, you're helping others identify their toxic traits so maybe they can fix them in the future. On the other hand, you're helping others learn how to respect you properly. If you are setting boundaries with toxic people, it may be a hint to them that certain things they do are being very toxic to those around them. They may not have even realized that they were doing these things. So by telling them, it could help them fix those toxic traits and turn their life around. Not all toxic people will use constructive criticism this way, but after you discuss things with them, it is no longer your responsibility. It is never your responsibility to change someone. Those who may not be toxic will be able to learn how you interpret things and how to properly respect you. Your friends may not know that something as small as a touch can be too much at times or for certain reasons. However, setting these clear boundaries can help them to help you. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is something that everyone should do, so that each and every person can live the life they want. It is a very healthy thing for personal relationships. How to know when you should adjust your boundaries. Yes, you read the title right. Sometimes adjusting boundaries is the right thing to do. Even though most articles preach about being assertive and direct on your boundaries, there is another side to things. As someone clearly looking to be in healthy relationships, it is always good to know the entire story, rather than just the more publicized part. Adjusting boundaries shows that you are able to adapt your relationships, healthy or unhealthy, based on circumstance. Adjusting boundaries could mean giving more boundaries or taking some away. Either way, it is a big step that needs time to be considered. Generally, people need reassurance that adjusting boundaries is the right thing to do. So here you go. Lowering boundaries. When you start to feel as if you should lower your boundaries with people, or in other words, give them more personal access to you, it can be daunting and exciting. This generally means you're getting closer to the person that you are lowering boundaries for. Maybe this individual started off as a coworker or acquaintance, but now they are a close friend, or even closer, as in someone you are dating. That creates an exciting experience as you begin to grow your relationship with others. Being direct is not only great advice for putting boundaries in place, but also taking boundaries away. If you have had a previous talk with this individual about your boundaries and their place in those boundaries, then the stage is already set for your new conversation. Lowering your boundaries is the thing that is often not talked about in groups that discuss a healthy boundary setting. However, it is something that should receive just as much time and consideration. Building boundaries. Another possible adjustment to your boundaries is adding more on or more stipulations to these boundaries on. This can often signify a difficult time in one's life or their relationships. Adjusting these boundaries for chosen people can help you add some structure and self to your life. This could happen if that individual just simply won't stop testing your boundaries or going past them, but you want to try and make things work. Or maybe this individual has a really good friend and now they are just an acquaintance to you. Therefore, some extra boundaries have to be set in place. This is a basic, healthy boundary setting, and therefore reading articles on setting boundaries may help you just as much. This is the aspect in adjusting boundaries that the mainstream groups promoting healthy boundary setting thrive on. How do you know when to adjust boundaries? This is the main question, which doesn't exactly have a straight answer since it is a different experience for each and every person. That seems discouraging, but it should be empowering. Just keep reading. You are a unique individual. There is only one of you out there. Therefore, your experiences are completely unique as well. No one besides yourself can truly know when the right time is to adjust your boundaries or what the signs are. That means that inward analyzation is needed. You need to set boundaries with yourself, for lack of a better phrase. Set boundaries for when someone needs to have more boundaries put in place, or what stage is best for you to get rid of some boundaries. For some people, the sign is a certain emotion or the prevalence of one emotion. For others, a certain date or anniversary or having that relationship is the time to adjust. Once you establish what you believe is right for adjusting boundaries in your relationships, then you will be able to actually go forth and do so. How to say no without feeling guilty. Saying no can often bring up fears of rejection, confrontation, or abandonment. However, saying no is also a very powerful tool to have. You no longer have to take on too much work, no longer have to spend time doing what you hate, and so on. Once you are confident and feel able to say no, then you are more in control of your life than ever before. This can help you create even more healthy boundaries and healthy relationships in the long run. 1. Assess the times you have said no. There has to be a preconceived notion as to why you feel guilty about saying no at all. The first step is to assess if you feel guilty because of a situation that has happened with you or if it was something portrayed in society. Shows can portray saying no to someone as extremely dramatic, heartbreaking, or something along those lines. It can portray the character that said no as guilty and the bad guy. This makes many people believe, often subconsciously, that they must feel this way if they say no to something or someone. In reality, it is almost never this extreme. You are not a bad person for saying no to someone or something. You are simply setting your personal boundaries. Also, you saying no to that person will not ruin their life. And even if it did, that is not your responsibility. By examining where this idea came from in your life could help you break it down. Once things are broken down, they seem much less intimidating and often much more easy to conquer. 2. Do it on your time. Nothing is easy to say no matter how simple when on someone else's timeline. If there is a deadline, it often makes people more nervous even if they know what they are going to say. So don't try to confine to anyone else's deadline. This is setting a boundary that you are in charge of yourself and your time. Doing things at your own convenience could help you become more comfortable saying what you really want to. Pressured people tend to crack and say what they think they should, not what they want to. Non-pressured people are free from that spiral. Making yourself more comfortable will help you feel less guilty, or ideally not guilty when telling someone no. This can also go along with your boundaries that you may have set. Setting time boundaries gives you so much more control over your life. 3. Practice. It may sound really silly to practice saying no to yourself in the mirror, but it can truly work for some people. There are those who state that looking at yourself in the mirror and saying something will make it easier to say and/or easier to believe. For many, this seems to be a very real thing. Rather than just build your self-confidence in saying what you want to, it will also show you what you look like when you say it. This could help to ease some concerns about coming across as mean or rude. If you're worried about sounding rude, then you can also experiment with different ways of how to say no to others. One may work out perfectly. In the end, you have to feel comfortable with yourself and your boundaries in order to feel no guilt when saying no. This could take a long time depending on where you're starting, but each time you achieve telling someone no, your confidence is going to skyrocket. Top 5 tips for creating boundaries. Creating boundaries can be scary no matter what age or stage you are at in your journey. Luckily, there are plenty of people out there who have gone through exactly what you are going through. Those people were able to hand down tips so that hopefully the process could go a little smoother for you. 1. Be direct. The most important tip is to be direct. Do not tiptoe around what you're doing or the stipulations of it. Let the person know that you're looking to create boundaries, why you want to create boundaries, and what those boundaries are. Not being direct could confuse the person you are talking to, and you might end up having to have the entire conversation again. Being direct will make sure that you set in stone what your boundaries are and what you expect from now on. 2. Personal permission. As stated above, setting boundaries can be scary. Often, people believe that they are doing something wrong or are being selfish, both of which are false. By having a deep look inside of yourself and having an internal conversation before you may be able to get rid of these beliefs. By getting rid of these beliefs that what you are doing is wrong, you will be able to set boundaries easier and with more self-respect. Inner justification of what you are doing could help to empower you more and keep you moving towards the life that you imagine. 3. Start small. If you are still feeling a little unsure about boundaries, how to set them, or if you should set them, then start off small. Make a little boundary such as only talking on the phone for 10 minutes or not responding to texts during work hours. Something very doable. By doing this, you are able to gauge how setting boundaries feels, how it works for you, and how it benefits you. This will also give others in your life time to prepare for future boundaries you may want to set. 4. Don't waver. If you are close with the person whom you're setting boundaries with, then the conversation might be even more awkward. They may not understand why the boundary needs to be set, or they may take offense to it. While explaining to them why you are setting it and so on could help them to understand. However, even if it doesn't, you need to stick to what you set. Don't let them talk you out of something or talk you into changing your boundary, which will do more harm in the future. By sticking to what you first said, you are establishing this is what you want and this is what you are going to get. Then, that person can choose to be around you or not. You will walk out feeling much more empowered and relieved if you stick to your original boundary. 5. Don't try to fix others. You are setting boundaries for your well-being, not for others. Even though setting some of these boundaries could help others realize that they have toxic traits, it does not mean you are responsible for them. You are only responsible for yourself. If you are setting boundaries to help out someone else, then you are setting them for the wrong reasons. Boundaries should be on your behalf and your behalf only. Others are responsible for setting their boundaries to help themselves out. There are plenty more tips out there from those who have gone through this before you, but these were the most important. By staying true to your boundary, being direct, giving yourself permission to do so, and starting small, you're making great leaps towards a life that better suits you. What to do when someone oversteps my boundaries? Boundaries can be hard to set in the first place. Having someone who knows your boundaries overstep them after having a talk about them is even more difficult. Making sure to reset these boundaries or move on is a must. That way, you're still able to live life on your terms. Setting boundaries. If someone close to you has overstepped the boundaries you set with them, the first line of action is attempting to reset these boundaries. Starting off the way you originally set boundaries with them may make them feel a little less like they need to be on the offensive side. This will help you to have a real and more open conversation with them. The first thing you should do for the good of yourself and others is to talk internally about what happened. Acknowledge who overstepped your boundaries, what boundary it was, and how it was overstepped. By laying all of these things out in your mind, you're able to assess the situation better. This can also give you an upper hand when moving into the conversation stage. Just as when you're setting boundaries in the first place, be sure to be direct and assertive. Being direct about what boundary they're overstepping is key in getting that boundary back in place. If you beat around the bush, then the individual you are talking to may not explicitly know what they did wrong. If they don't know, then how are they supposed to fix it? Being assertive while directly stating what boundary was overstepped and how is a must also. Do not let that individual talk their way out of what happened. They may not want to own up to what they did to overstep your boundary, but it is necessary for you both to move on and have a healthy relationship. Looking at the relationship. If you were unable to have a productive talk with the individual who overstepped your boundary, then you may find yourself looking deep into the relationship. If the individuals seem to not take your boundaries seriously in the first place, then you may have already been to this spot. In your everyday relationships, you want mutual respect, which is the basis of a healthy relationship. Mutual respect means that you respect their boundaries and they respect yours as well. If this is not happening both ways, then maybe this is not a good relationship for you to have. As sad as it can be sometimes in life, you have to let people go. Look at this individual's history with you. Have they always disregarded your boundaries? Or is it just this one? It is ultimately up to you what happens, but if it was just this once, it is okay to give them another chance. This does not mean you are being weak in any way. If it has only been one time and you decide to cut them out of your life, then that is okay too. It all has to do with your personal limits, which no one else should have an influence on. Once again, you are creating healthy boundaries for you. No matter what you choose to do in the end, it is always good to start by looking at the situation as a whole. This way, you can see if it was an accident, on purpose, because of something else, etc. This can then help you move to the next stage of talking with them and figuring out if you want to reset your boundaries or let that person go from your life.